Lorinda, you may want to mute and see if it's you.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe it's only on Zooms, but isn't there an option where you can have them automatically muted on entry? I'm not a Zoom expert, but that might take care of issues.
I can mute all. Is that what we want to do?
I think we're okay now. Just, you know, something to think about going forward.
I think we're waiting for a few more on our side, Stephanie.
Okay, no problem. Hey, you look like you're all by yourself.
There's a webcam on for the conference room we're setting up.
Awesome.
Ms. Yoakum, did you receive the emailed agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
Kevin, can you forward that to our team? Here, I think I can do it while we're waiting for the district team to get set up. Give me a second.
We're ready, Stephanie, when Kevin's ready. We've started the recording.
Okay. I was forwarding it to our team. Okay. All right. So I think is Wilfredo on?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I didn't see your bubble. So we are bargaining today. Today is Tuesday, August 17th. Starting at 3:34 with PEA and the district bargaining teams. So we wanted to use this time today to look at what was outstanding with our para and ESP contracts and hopefully get resolutions on what's still left on the table for those contracts. We know that we are bargaining with AFSCME in the district next week on Thursday the 26th at 5 p.m. for joint health negotiations. But we wanted to hopefully wrap up our para and ESP salary and compensation year so that we could go out for ratification and get those folks their raise. So
does.
Go ahead, Wilfredo.
So does the employer, I'm assuming Laura, I don't know who, but would like to review what's outstanding in terms of the para and ESP?
That's reflected on the agenda, things that we discussed the cost of, and I'm not sure if Ms. Jenkins or Mr. Pitts are on the line.
We're here. So what we have outstanding are we have supplement Additions for paras and ESPs with the health contact and the Title I. We have Article 19 for para and Article 15 for ESP with the payroll frequency updates to reflect the current MOU for the semi-monthly language. And there was two other pieces in both of those articles that mirror each other with off-cycle checks and let me look. I'm blanking now.
Subpay?
No, well, that's a separate article. So the off-cycle checks. And employees coming back from a district-approved leave of absence, if they want to switch over to semi-monthly pay, them being allowed to do that upon the return of their leave of absence if they've missed the window to switch. And so those were two additions that we had proposed in addition to what's in the payroll frequency MOU. And then we have Article 8, subpay for paraeducators. We are proposing that pay be 50-25 permanently. And then we have what we think a lot of our conversation is probably going to surround today is network managers, which both parties have proposals on the table. And then we had a few other pay grades and positions that we wanted to discuss some things with you when we talk about network managers as well. So that's what we have.
So is that, so I'm sorry, Stephanie. So does that reflect the employer's understanding in terms of what's outstanding?
For those contracts.
Yes, for the para and ESP?
Those items are on the agenda, yes. Is that your question?
Yes, that is my question. I need to make sure that you verify that I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding here so that if we're reviewing it, you agree that what we're reviewing. I don't want to make an assumption that just because it's on the agenda that we missed something or that we don't review it thoroughly. So that's why I asked to review what's outstanding for paras and ESPs.
Everything Ms. Yocum mentioned is on the agenda except the pay grades and positions she just mentioned.
Okay, pay grades and positions.
Okay, perfect. And I know, Heather, I had sent you an example of what I was thinking. We were thinking for the alpha pay grades. And so I know we need to have that fleshed out before we advertise the tentative agreements for ratification so that everybody's clear on what their actual specific pay grade is going to look like. And so I guess we can talk about if there's an update, if we can, have you had a chance to share that with your finance team yet?
We have taken an initial look at it. We haven't completely vetted it out yet.
Okay. Because we'll need to have all that fleshed out and agreed to before we can go out for ratification.
And this
Because we need to make sure that they know exactly where they came from and where they're moving.
Right. So this may not be a fair question, but I just have to put it out there just to make sure it's out there. Do you have a timeline, estimated time of arrival? I guess put a timeline for that, Heather.
I would say we could probably have it reviewed by this week.
Okay.
Excellent.
It looks reasonable. It's just, I have to check with our programmers to make sure, because there are certain characters that fit. So we just have to double check and see if it's doable within SAP.
Okay.
And that it fits.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I didn't want to do it for every single pay grade. I wanted to give you an example because I know, I am not an SAP expert. So, I didn't want to do all of them. And yeah, so if we can get together sometime, at the end of this week or next week and look at that once your team has kind of fleshed it out, that way we can start working on, hanging them in the contract the way people will read them for ratification for the salary agreements.
And Ms. Jenkins, you may not be aware, I sent that to programmers. You may have done the same, but they have it.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Okay.
So I think at this point, we put our proposals out there, right, Stephanie? We're owed some counters or at least some discussions on the items. So, so which one does the employer want to begin with?
We can actually begin with the individuals that are on leave that you would like to switch pay cycles, or to be able to elect the 24 pays rather than the 12. Unfortunately, the way that our system is set up, once we've missed that window, it's not an option to go back and select the 24 pays until the next cycle opens up, due to the way that it's set up in SAP and the way that the individuals are paid.
So even if it's, so I guess my question would be then too, not necessarily during, if they came back and leave in the middle of the school year, but if they miss the window and let's say we know at the end of May, June, they're coming back from, let's say, a charter leave or a parental leave of absence, and they're starting like the very first day of their contract for the next school year. I mean, would they, since it's not, would you see what I'm saying? So not necessarily in the middle of the school year, because I see how that would be difficult.
I do, but our timelines, the way that we've set up the deadlines and timelines, it's so that we can get everyone into the system. And if we have a lot of one-offs, we run the risk of someone being paid incorrectly or us making a mistake or adding additional volumes of work. The reason, we set our deadlines as far apart as we could to be able to encompass that.
Okay.
So if they come off a long a year's worth of leave, right? You have to reconstitute them in terms of onboard them, I should say, right? That would also include payroll. Would that be an opportunity for them to choose bi-monthly if they decided to? Can you do that?
What I was told is they have to be active at the point that they select the bi-monthly.
Well, if an employee is out for a year for educational leave, again, and they come back, you have to. I'm assuming this. I don't know what you have to, but I'm assuming this onboarding process that they have to, fill out probably some paperwork, notify folks, and part of that probably includes payroll. And isn't that an opportunity? Would that be an opportunity for them to either maintain whatever they had before they went on the leave, or can they choose bi-monthly at that point?
If it's within the timeline, I can check on that, but I do believe it would be an option to choose bi-monthly if it's within the time frame in which the selection's open.
I remember in the payroll frequency committee, I didn't think that when Mike Jones was kind of explaining the SAP stuff, that he had even said and told Dana that really you could change them at any time. And I understand it's a workload issue, but when they're coming back and having to notify from a leave, it's in our best interest as a district to move people more to semi-monthly anyway, because then we can move them into the arrears instead of current pay. So I would just see we're missing an opportunity to move more people into arrears, when we're already having to reactivate them in our system. So their payroll's already having to touch them individually to get their payroll back active. So this could be an opportunity just to switch their checks. And maybe this doesn't happen in the middle of the school year. Maybe this happens if they're a 12-month July 1, or when they're hired back for a 10-month employee, whenever they start their first day of pre-planning or whatever. But since payroll already has to touch these people individually to reactivate them, we wanted to give them an opportunity if they did want to move to semi-monthly to do that.
So if they're out for a leave, if they're out for a year, they're coming back from a leave, and the onboarding process includes payroll, and I'm assuming payroll has to touch them, has to do something with them to make sure they're back in the system. If it's not, if the parties agree that we want them to have that choice, or we want them to go bi-monthly, then all we really need to do is just find out. I'm assuming via a phone call. I'm not sure, but that if that's possible, then I think we're good. We're there.
Well, Fredo, I'll check on that and I'll get back with you. We may have to put some date parameters around it, but I'll find out if that's possible.
Okay. Right quick, and again, I hate to be pushy, but Stephanie says I should, and I'm just kidding. Do you have like a time frame, a week, 2 days, an hour? Just an example.
No, I will find out and get back with you
Okay, all right, that's fine.
as quickly as I can.
So in Article 19 and Article 15, other than what we had already signed off on, that small part at the end of both of those articles related to the pay level increases, were we okay with the other additions that we had proposed in 19 and 15? $19 for the paras and $15 for the ESPs.
Can you be more specific about which articles you're talking about? There are
So
several.
Article 19 for the para and Article 15 for the ESP, it mirrors the same language because we needed to update both of those articles to reflect our payroll frequency options now. And so what I did when we were preparing for this is I took the payroll frequency MOU and I just kind of looked at what fit and I wanted you guys to take a look at that to see if that is in line with what the payroll frequency MOU is saying. And so specifically in 19.1, in paraeducators, and it's in 15, it's in 1511, we were striking through payments will be made on the last duty day of each month during the school term and the last weekday of June and July, because we are moving to the last banking day, and that's in the current MOU that's active right now. And so we don't do that, so I had stricken through that language. And then in the 19.2, I added, you can see where it's bolded and underlined, I took it from the payroll frequency MOU. And so we didn't do this with a collaboration. I just took it from the payroll frequency. So I wanted you guys on the finance side to check it, because I think that this is really a no-brainer discussion because we already have this active with the payroll frequency MOU. The only two real things that weren't in the payroll frequency were the leave of absence and then